So I'm super happy about it. That's the first one. If I were to say, if I were to have a regret, that would be one, but it's not. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of BeReel365. Man, today's episode might get a little emotional on this one. Yeah. So the question for today, day 4 of the 365 questions. Today's question is, do you have any regrets in life? And if so, what are they? So this question for me is an interesting one to answer for this reason. I am a 1,000% believer in that every single thing happens for a reason, whether you like it or not. 1,000%, 1,000,000% believer in that. And there are times where I'm wondering, why in the hell is this happening right now? But I know that for a fact that it's happening for a reason, and it'll work itself out in the end. That's why I tend, that's why I tend not to really stress a whole lot about things. I mean, I still do sometimes, we're human, but I tend to stress a lot less than other people about how things will play out. Let me rephrase that. I tend to not stress out about how things will play out in the end, because I know that however they play out was how they were supposed to play out, and there will be some good reason of why it played out that way. That's again going back to what I think my greatest strength is. I'm very self-aware of that, and I know I see the good in the situation. Even in the bad situations, I see a good in. Like, this is off topic, but I'm going to be honest with you guys. Like, and this goes back to day 1 question. I think it was day 1 is, are you satisfied and content with your life right now? And I didn't share this on day 1, but I'll share it today because it answers it goes into the whole overall context of this question, right? I am at a place that I'm not content or satisfied right now. Like 38, don't own it. I don't own a house. I have a car but I had a little bit of help with the car, so I don't necessarily, even though I own the car, I don't own the car. It's weird. But I live in a house with a very good friend of mine and his wife. I live in, my business is not anywhere. Like, it's literally just now starting again. I'm not where I want to be health-wise. I mean, there's a lot of things, right? But very specifically, like, where I am right now, like, I'm living in this house, very grateful to my, my good buddy and his wife for letting me move in here. Super, super grateful to them. Yet, sometimes, there's been a couple times in the last couple months that I've been here where I've thought, like, man, like, is there something that I should have done different? Like, if I had done this and this differently, then I wouldn't be in this situation. I'd be much further along. And you just can't think like that. Because I know that, like, okay, there's a reason for me being here. And I've already figured out, I'm not going to get into it because it's personal to me and my buddy, but I think there's a very specific reason why I ended up here living with them for this short time. And so, yeah, I don't really regret much. There's only 2 real big things for me that if I were to say, I regret something, then these 2 things would be it. Number 1 is when I was 18 years old, I went to Longwood to a show that 2 magicians were putting on, a husband and a wife team. The Spencers were their name. They were the number 1 college touring magic act in the nation at that time when I was 18 years old. So 20 years ago. Gosh. I was known for doing magic in college, and so before the show started, I was doing magic to friends and people around and that sort of thing. Well, one of the stagehands for the Spencers found out about it, and he came up to me and was like, hey, the Spencers want to talk to you after the show. And I'm like, oh shit, like, I think I'm in trouble. And so the show ended. I hung around the lobby where they were signing autographs, taking pictures and that sort of thing. And they came up to me and they said, hey, listen, we heard you doing magic at the beginning of the show. And I was like, I'm so sorry. They're like, no. Like, we love that. Like we do all big stage illusions. We don't do any of the close-up stuff like you're doing, the cards and coins and that sort of thing. We would love for you to come on the road with us and be a back, stage guy in the back and help set up the show. But before the show goes on, you do exactly what you just did and walk around throughout the audience and perform close-up magic for us. You just go on tour with us. Huge opportunity. Literally, I know for a fact would have changed the course of my life. I know, well, let me just say this. Let me tell you what happened. I was scared to leave home, and I said no. I turned it down because I was so fearful of leaving home and being on the road with people I didn't know in an environment that I didn't know. And I told them no. And I know for a fact that if I were to say yes to that, I'd be one of the top performing magicians to this day. I know that for a fact. And so that became real for me last year, which is one of the reasons why I sold my business and started to pursue performing full time. Was I had an entertainment agent that I had run into 2 years previous in 2016. And I just happened to run into him again at a wedding expo. I looked up and he was directly in front of me and he says, "Hey, good to see you again. Can you, basically, long story short, can you put together a 1-minute video for me and I'll put you on the roster?" And the first thing I thought was, the first thing I thought was, holy crap, that's awesome. Then after I got home, I thought, man, I don't want to be 20 years from now wondering what would have happened if I'd have said no to him, like I did 20 years ago to the husband and wife team. So that's part of the reason why I sold my business. So that's part of the reason why I said, yep, I'll do it. And 2 weeks later, I had a video and I was off pursuing, and they put me on the roster and I was off pursuing performing. I sold my company, I think, 2 months after that, and then off pursuing the magic thing. And so I look at that and I go, well, there's a reason. If I'd have said yes to the people when I was 18 years old, to the husband and wife team, and gone on the road and become a performing magician, traveling magician, I would have never met the people that I've met along the way in my life since then. I would have never experienced all of the things that have happened to me since that moment in time, since, in the last 20 years. And what has happened to me in the last 20 years, it's put me into the place of where I am now and what I'm doing now, which I think makes me, in the end, more grateful that I didn't say yes than if I had said yes. I'm actually more happy now that I told them no, because now that's part of my story. Like, when I succeed now, because I will, when I succeed now, that then becomes part of my story. Oh, I told these people no 20 years ago, but all of these things have happened, and all these struggles and triumphs have happened in the last 20 years to get me to a place now where I'm content and happy with my life and super successful. So I'm super happy about it. That's the first one. If I were to say, if I were to have a regret, that would be one, but it's not. The second one is a little tougher. I regret starting to learn about my mom too late. I told you guys on a previous episode that my dad passed away when I was 7. My mom and I always had a hard time getting along and connecting. And I moved out when I was 18, and we never really talked. And in 2008, I was living down in Myrtle Beach, and I got a call from my aunt. And they said that they wanted to come down to Myrtle Beach to visit me. But the reason that I found out once they got down there was because my mom had breast cancer. And they obviously didn't know what was going to happen. She was going to go through chemo and do all the treatments, but you never know, right? So I ended up moving back to Richmond. But even then, I still didn't spend a whole lot of time with my mom. Because, like, every time we got together, we like got into an argument. And I'm like, well, I'd rather just not go because I don't want to get into an argument, right? Like, fuck, like, I think about that now. I'm like, man, like how fucking selfish of me was that? You know, to put my own self-interest in front of getting to know my mom. You know, it wasn't until, I always thought she was so hard on me growing up, and she was to an extent. But she never remarried. She put me into a private school, super expensive. We had a nice house. So she sacrificed all this stuff for me. And I always took it for granted. And I think now, like, I don't even know if I've ever told her, like, thank you for everything that you did for me when I was growing up. I honestly don't know if I've ever said that to her. And of course, I don't have a chance to say it now. But so she got the breast cancer, and I think 2 years in, she went into remission, beat the breast cancer, and then in 2013, I think it was 2000. Yeah, 2000. I think it was 2013, 2014. She developed leukemia, not just any leukemia, like the second rarest form of leukemia that you can have. Actually, I know for a fact that it was in the last part of 2015, and I know that because of this. This is part of the regret, if there was one. I had just started my media company, the first one, and it was just me and the other guy, and we were so busy. Like, I remember my mom being like, when are you going to come over? Because her and my aunt lived together. And my mom, like, texted me, being like, when am I going to see you again? Like, you only call, like, once a week, and you only come by once a week, and you're only here for, like, an hour. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I'm building this business because I want to be able to provide, to have this business be successful and provide for you, because her insurance wasn't covering all the medical costs. And so that's the justification that I gave myself in my own mind was, I'm sacrificing time with you so that I can build this business in order to help you. That's what, right or wrong, like, that's just what I had in my own head. That was my own thinking behind it. And so, and she would get better, and she'd go through the chemo and she'd get better, and then because of the chemo she'd get really sick and she'd get worse again, and it was just like this up and down. And then she went into remission. We're like, great, she's beat it, and I'm thinking, all right, great, I fully concentrate on business again, even though I kind of really already was, and so I still never really spent that much time with her. And also the fact, and I feel so shitty about this, but like, I hate being in hospitals because I've had a lot of loss in my family, and I just don't like being in hospitals. I don't like being in that environment. Like, even now thinking about it, like, my mom was constantly in a hospital. Constantly. If you've had anybody in your family that's had cancer, you know that they spend the majority of their time in a hospital bed. And I just didn't like going in there. I always felt uneasy, and then also, like, how fucking selfish of me, but like I would go in there and then we'd talk, and like she would razz me on something, and then I'd get super upset and we'd get into an argument and I'd leave. And like, thinking back to it now, like I feel effing terrible about it. And it wasn't until the very end she had started to develop some kidney issues in the beginning of 2016, and or like the middle of 2016, and got really, really bad off, and because the doctors had performed radiation on her brain, which we found out they weren't even supposed to do. It caused her to have early onset dementia. And so she would constantly forget things. She would ask me the same question like 20 times, which annoys the shit out of me anyways. And instead of being like sympathetic to that, like I get super pissed off. Like I think about it now, I'm like super upset. Like if I were to say I were to have a regret, that would be it. It would be, I regret not being more sympathetic, to being so selfish and not more sympathetic to what my mom was going through. And also, on the other side of that, not spending more time with my mom. It wasn't until the very, very end, in the last couple months really, before she passed away, that it really sunk in for me, like how much she's done for me her entire life. And even though she hasn't verbally supported me and validated me, that she still loves me and she still fully supports me, even though she never said it. And for me, that didn't really sink in until almost it was too late. And I remember the last week or so before she passed away, she was pretty much just not there. She was on a lot of medication, and we had brought her home and put her on hospice, and we knew that literally any day would be the day. And I would go over to, she was, like, as I live with my aunt, I would go over to the house and just sit beside the bed with her and talk to her and and tell her things would be okay, and that I loved her, and that that I was sorry for how I treated her, and I don't know if she heard me. I have no idea. I would like to think that she did. But I remember going over every single night. I would sit for hours with her, fall asleep there, wake up in the morning, go home, go back to work in the business. And I remember, I think it was a Friday night, and I had gotten there at like 7 o'clock at night, I think. And like I'd fallen asleep, next to the bed and in the chair. And I remember at like 2 o'clock, my aunt woke me up and she was like, "Go home, I'm here." And I said, "Okay." I think that was like 2:15. And at 5 o'clock, I got a call from my aunt that said that my mom had passed away. And so I like immediately had a regret of leaving. I'd spent every night there for like a week and a half. And then the one night that I leave is the night that she passes away. And just an immediate regret of wanting back more time when she was fully coherent, to let her know how much I appreciated her and how much I was grateful for her. And so now, I would say to you all, don't take for granted the times that you have with people. Don't let your own selfish ways get in the way of you connecting with someone and being real about what's there. And if you have issues, to talk about the issues. This is, part of my last relationship too, where I let the same thing happen, where it's like I just let my own things get in the way, and then I felt like, I'm not getting into that, but cherish the time that you have with your loved ones, is what I'm saying. If you're going to have regrets, don't let that be one of them. That's, something that I ask for you all is, don't have a regret of not spending time with your loved ones and getting to know your loved ones. Or if something happened with your uncle or your dad or grandfather or grandmother or sister or brother, whoever it is, and you haven't talked in years, like, reach out. Don't live a life of regret. The other thing I would say about that is so many people live a life of regret, and I think it's because we're fearful of confronting what it would mean if we were to do the thing that wouldn't lead to regret. So my suggestion to all of you watching this or listening to this is be real with yourself. Be real with your feelings. Be real with your relationships. Work out whatever you need to work out. If you're in a job that you don't like, or a relationship that you don't like, or you're just unhappy, then do something to change your situation. Because I guarantee you, if you don't, you will end up at the end of your life regretting that you never took the chance and the risk to change your circumstances. I guarantee that'll happen. And I don't want that to happen for you. That's it. That's it. Thank you all very much for watching this. And I appreciate each and every one of you in the time that you take to watch or listen or read this. Sincerely, I appreciate it. You all have a great one. See you tomorrow.